because their schedule was so hard at the start of the year.
Okay, we're into draft. Very important. Going to go ahead and call this out. We are on patch 14.15 this week. Aurora is enabled. Not just enabled, she's not micro-patch nerfed. So you can see her first ban there on red side. This was previously the Skarner spot earlier on this year. It is probably going to be the Aurora spot, at least for this week, because the champion, anytime a micro-patch nerf has to come out, it generally means the character is very strong. So Dig's going to ban that alongside the Sejuani and Senna, while Nidalee and Lilia are banned out, those powerful AP junglers alongside the Cassante from NRG.
Yeah, and some pretty good like targeted bans. Obviously, NRG wants to remove the Nidalee and Lilia away from Spica, and then the kind of comfort of the Cassante. Whereas I still think NRG are one of our better or best Senna teams with FBI, and then removing the Sedge from Contractz, who can do a lot with that champion. Rumble first pick, though, presumably for Dhokla in the top lane.
I think so. I think that'll also pair really well with a Tristana or a Corki mid for Palafox, so a very standard, balanced team composition for them. The big thing that this will allow them to do, though, is maybe have a little bit more push in the top lane. That is something that has been a struggle for NRG. They played so much around their bottom side this year that Dhokla is definitely kind of on an island up there a lot of the time, and he's been struggling a bit.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dignitas is going to go ahead and secure themselves that Ivern as the first pick. This champion has become a little bit more popular recently, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Ivern is actually really, really strong. Contractz, interestingly enough, for NRG is a known Ivern player, as well as Armeo in the LCS. They did not end up first picking it, and it fell out of the draft. That's actually been something that people have been banning against NRG pretty frequently, and we've seen Ivern be so successful, especially with so many AD carry compositions. And we talked about how, yes, Kraken Slayer got nerfed, LDR and Mortal Reminder got nerfed. There are some targeted itemization changes against AD carries on this patch. As we see the Maokai locked in for Contractz, some really excellent combination with Rumble potential there. But Ivern is just so great at like keeping your carries safe and buffing them, and he's just really annoying, honestly. Like really, really annoying if you're playing against him.
Especially in a world with, like you're talking about, every team composition these days having two different marksmen. This guy just exists to facilitate those marksmen. But it will be tree versus tree here in the jungle as we have that Lucian locked in for NRG. Not surprised at all to see this. You've got some of that mid lane power there from that mid lane marksman alongside the big AP heavy hitter with the top side Rumble. We'll see how well Palafox can pilot this.
Definitely the more aggressive choice in terms of the Tristana, Corki, Zeri, Lucian combos that we're seeing in the mid lane, but it is generally what we expected with the Rumble top lane, an AD pick that is, we're 90% this is going to go mid, even though there is a world where they'd go Lucianami and then still throw a Trist or Corki mid lane, so it's a bit of a flex pick, which NRG can still pull off from the blue side, but not too surprising.
All right, let's see what we get here. I'm also very curious. A lot of times recently here in the LCS, when Lucian mid has been picked, it's picked alongside a Bard support or something similar that is constantly going to be roaming, allowing Lucian to use that pressure that he needs to exert in order to be valuable as a pick. So I'm curious if the support role is going to be targeted more by Dig here in the second half of the draft with the bans. Jhin banned away, so they don't want to deal with that one. Let's see what NRG has up their sleeves.
Yeah, Jhin taken off the table, and I am super curious to see on the side of NRG. You mentioned how Lucian can be a flex. I still fully expect it to go mid as Trist is removed.
Same.
That pairs, again, even with the Trist individual nerfs, even with the itemization nerfs, Trist just pairs so well with Ivern, and especially when she's a mid, allows you to mow down turrets so quickly once you actually push out, get mid prio, and get a ton of turret plays off of her in tandem with the Ivern.
I didn't know the Poro hats were out of stock, personally.
I didn't either.
Yeah, we're top people are on it at this point.
This is a tragedy. We got to get more Poro hats back here in the shop, but it is Kalista banned out alongside that Jhin. So double marksman targeting from Dignitas in the second half of the draft. Do you think they're also just going to try to get rid of the Corki or another one of these mid lane potential marksmen here for NRG, or something else?
I think it makes the most sense in terms of limiting the amount of options they have mid lane. Jensen doesn't strike me as Zeri player. So
Yep.
he definitely has a lot of quirky games in the past, and it's just trying to keep him off of comfort. This does actually open the window, and unless he plays Zeri for a mage pick, like I do know, even though it's not traditionally a good matchup, that like Jensen's had a lot of really good Azir or Orianna games against Lucian mid. So we'll see if he just goes back to control mage city or if he actually pulls out the Zeri for what I think would be the first time.
Wow.
Yeah, Jensen's Zeri mid.
Jensen Zeri.
Now, I'm not going to lie to you
That's
guys.
interesting.
I'm a little bit concerned because in the past, we've always seen Jensen excel on what we think of when we think traditional mid laner, right? The control mages, those evergreen picks. He's struggled a bit. I still remember back to the era of solo lane Viego. And all of Jensen's teammates wishing that would no longer be the meta because he's struggled adapting to it. So I'm curious how well he'll be able to pilot this Zeri as somebody who has been, you know, such a clutch player in some situations. Braum for NRG.
Your favorite boy.
Baby,
Your boy.
he's back. They tried to kill him. They tried to squash him. They knocked him back down to a lower pick rate than before we got reworked, but he's still here. He's ready to rock with the rock. We got Skarner locked in for Big Dig.
That is very surprising to me.
Yeah.
Because he has been eviscerated by nerfs and completely dropped out of the meta, but this is a window where, I mean, their topside damage is comically low now with Skarner, Ivern up against a Rumble.
It's vibes, man.
And also, like, we talked about Rumble being already something that when Skarner was absolutely giga broken, was something that people were like, well, because of his pushing power, because of his damage, he can be an alright counter. It was the Rumble and the Mordekaiser that we saw people workshopping the most. And around those mid to late game team fights and objective setups, then I do favor NRG's comp.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Summoner's Rift for the first time today in this best of three between NRG and Dignitas. Jensen piloting that mid lane Zeri, not a pick that we would have been expecting out of him. And Licorice also choosing the Skarner despite the suite of nerfs the champion has endured. I think the solo lanes for Dig are the big question mark here in this first game.
So, we are on patch 14.15.
Yep.
Okay.
And Skarner was technically buffed on patch 14.15.
Sure.
I don't like the word technically.
Well, so here's the buffs. Health growth increased to 110 from 105. That's 5 health per level, man.
Wowie.
Sure.
By level 18, that's almost 100.
It's almost a fraction of a ruby crystal.
Armor growth increased to 5 from 4.8. So at level 5, that's a whole 1 armor.
I can bet that's got to be at least 13 gold worth of armor. That's like an entire
The Shattered Earth mana cost was reduced by 5 from 50 to 45. But then I think the first empowered attack after casting Shattered Earth now declares the automatic basic attack more quickly and smoothly.
Okay.
So quickness and smoothness. But previously from that, he was heavily nerfed in patch 14.13, which did remove him from the game. But there could be something cooking there that Licorice just tried him again after the buffs and thinks it's good.
I mean, I hope it's good. I want to see what Licorice has cooking. We'll see how many good angles he can find. Now that the champion is no longer just OP as a ball of stats, he's going to really need to look for good angles with that Ishtal impact to be able to start up fights. He'll need those multi-ultis if he really wants to have the impact in the team fight that'll justify the pick.
Yeah, that's a big thing for me. It's just with the nerfs that came down, as we see, Zven is getting really low.
Wow. Okay, popping the cleanse immediately to make sure that he does not get locked up any further, but NRG's bottom lane duo immediately taking control.
Well, especially Braum Ezreal is not exactly your level 2 power spike, time to bully the Ashe lane.
Yeah.
So that's an outplay there early on by FBI and Huhi. Zven. Also, neither of these AD carries bringing teleport to get back to lane quickly. I will say the wave's crashing pretty slow, so he's still going to catch most of this, but it's still a great early start for the NRG bottom.
Yeah, and as we look at Ezreal really briefly, see them laughing at each other in bot lane, he did get that Q like reversion. So for just to remind people, he was like technically nerfed, but it was the reversal of the buff he'd received about 2 patches ago. We had at that point already seen him pre-buff played in LCK. Yeah. He looked still really, really good. But that was kind of to stop him being so ubiquitous in every single draft.
What does ubiquitous mean?
Always there.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure. Look, Chat, I have to make sure that I
think
ask
that's a
because,
good question.
Yeah, it's.
I'm so sorry.
That's like a $10 word. I've heard it before. I never bothered to know what it meant, so I figured we all might as well learn something, or at least the other people that also don't know what it means.
I used to be a writer in another lifetime. You know?
No, I respect it. I'm happy to learn something here today. We're just watching junglers clear their camps anyway, so we might as well use the time that we've got as the junglers are just trading scuttlecrafts.
I do think this should be a new thing. I think, Emily, you should challenge yourself to use like non-ubiquitous words.
Oh, well, look at that. Hey, he's hooked on phonics.
Yeah.
I like that.
And then if that happens, you can define it during the cast. It's like everyone wants to do the like word of the day thing to improve their vocabulary, but no one actually sticks to it. So it could be your thing. Here's a gank.
Oh, uh-oh. Licorice trying to bring Dhokla back towards Spica, but the problem is Licorice might also be in some trouble. Dhokla overheats. The shield is there. Spica might just be able to get it done, and yes, he will. It's first blood for the Ivern.
And that's actually huge. The fact that they were able to keep the Rumble from bullying this lane. They trade flashes, which would make a repeat gank more likely. I think if they bring something like the Leona up there, very successful there. The gold going over to Spica, not super ideal. I want to see if we get a gank here from Maokai, though, with no cleanse on Zven. Too hard to get to.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's really going to work out. Or
going
maybe.
for a wraparound.
Hold on. FBI and Huhi going forward now. Flash coming out from Huhi to tag him there as Contractz wants to go in. He finds Twisted Advance. Remember, Zven is in really dire straits, and he's already down. FBI taking the kill as Spica shows up. Maybe they can get one back here as Huhi's already down to 100 HP. He is ignited, and he just can't fight it, but he can. The Unbreakable goes up, and Huhi stands tall. Energy tie up the kill.
And Huhi managed to live despite it all. You can really see why I think when the Ivern is not on my team as an AD carry main, I'm like, man, he's so annoying, you know? But really nice response from Contractz. One of the things that I've been pretty critical of this NRG team is I thought when they had so much more success, as we take a look at the top lane gank, from Spica looking ahead here.
That's just the smoothness of the Skarner there, being able to E him back to his jungler very early. He had been losing the lane, though, which is why he had to flash to safety. And then this fight in the bottom lane as well that we're just talking about, the full committal, just getting the original Q tag, a nice skill shot on the second Q, which actually ended up being pretty pivotal based on the fact that Spica came back for the counter gank on the other side, so they end up trading these kills. One other important note about that first blood by Dig, they have been really struggling in the early game. This is only the third first blood of the entire split that they pulled off there in the top lane.
That is not a very impressive number. 8th of 8.
This includes this game. This was 2 of 12 before.
Okay, that is good to know. That is certainly not the kind of first blood stat you're looking for, but it's also the first step in turning that number around.
Oh yeah.
And I was just saying before we saw those replays, the other thing that I've wanted from NRG is that same kind of early aggressiveness from Contractz. I think one of the things that a lot of AP farming junglers have done, and just general jungle XP changes, mean less lane interaction overall, or that lane interaction can sometimes be more punishing. But I thought this NRG team was always at their best when Contractz was able to interact with his lanes early.
All right, let's check in on mid, because we've kind of been watching everywhere else so far in the early game. Haven't really paid a whole lot of attention to what's going on here, because honestly, it's kind of a handshake. Just farm the minions back and forth. There's not really a whole lot of focus here.
And I think that would mean Jensen's playing that lane fairly well, since oftentimes the Lucian is picked to play aggressive early. And look out!
Oh no, Skarner, I think you're dead, buddy. Dhokla just walks up and cooks him. It's a 2-1 game for NRG.
At that point, the Maokai almost seems excessive.
Yeah,
he's already dead. As we see Jensen.
Yeah, Jensen's ready to keep this one going. Wants to keep that aggression towards Palafox, but not a whole lot more to find. Spica showing up behind him just to guarantee that he can play this out as aggressively as need be, but no way that's going to be a kill.
Yeah, it will be nice because it puts the lane in a really nice state for Jensen as we see how much Dhokla is actually getting off the top side, off of that gank, right? It really resets him in his favor. Rumble pushes in this matchup. Again, that was one of the things where you were looking at how does he go up against the previous Giga Broken Skarner? That was always one of the things that they were looking at from him, and so Dhokla getting those advantages topside is really good as well, as we see Dig starting up the trade.
Yeah, it is looking like the original mid lane gank by Spica that pushed Palafox back gives them the window to take this Drake, not to mention their bot lane was able to move up. So nice bit of a trade. The Grubs in the top laner died for the Drake on the bot side for Dignitas. Still a pretty close game.
And honestly, yeah, the first 9 minutes have a little bit of trading back and forth, but nobody's really running away with it yet, which kind of brings us back to, you know, what we were talking about before we really got into the draft and got into the game. And Jatt, you mentioned it. If NRG ends up winning this series, they're going to feel great, like heading heading towards playoffs, heading towards the end of the regular split. Dignitas, on the other hand, we were talking about their strength of schedule. We were talking about this team and the fact that they already have all the tough opponents out of the way. The end should be an easier run for them compared to most other squads. But after losing to Shopify last week, they really need to step up.
Yeah, this just increases the pressure for this game, and you're always worried about that with Dignitas when they're looking at the tail end of their schedule after facing a bunch of really big teams, and they'd almost expect to win against Shopify. Like, yes, they did get 2-0'd, but those were two very close games, especially the second one against Shopify last week. So Dignitas, they just need to, it sounds cliche, but step up, because they were actually very good against the top teams. They had one win against FlyQuest, one win against Team Liquid. They just haven't been able to close out enough series, so now would be the time. But then they're up against this NRG team who's been improving throughout the split. So even though it may look like they're playing one of the weaker teams, they're actually playing against one of the only teams with 2 wins in the whole split. They're in 4th place right now.
Well, I think it's also easy to recognize, like, this, every single person on this NRG team has won a title.
Yeah.
Every single person but Isles on Dignitas has also won a title. So
9 out of 10.
Yeah, so there's just like a lot of experience on both teams, which is why I think when you ask players to evaluate, like, oh, how good are these rosters sometimes, a lot of it is like, oh, well, they're not playing well right now, but we know that they know how to win because we've seen it before.
Well, we're going to get much of a scrap up here. A couple of projectiles being traded back and forth, but really not a whole lot. Remember that NRG got the first 3 grubs. Now they are starting up the second set. They've got a 4-man squad already ready to go here, but Dignitas is ready to maybe make the pincer attack here with Jensen coming up from the side. Immediate engage from Isles, but he's already nearly dead. He gets healed up by the Redemption. It's clutch to keep him alive as Huhi also has to flash away. NRG staying alive, kiting out, fighting out against Daisy. Meanwhile, down in the bottom lane, it's a 1v1 at the same time as Zven the calling back up here in the top side river with the equalizer, finding its way into Licorice in the bottom side as the Void Grubs 5-1 secured for NRG in the top fight.
Dignitas unable to prevent the Grubs from being taken completely, and an important part about why they fought in the bot lane is both those laners had teleport. So I think Licorice was staying dangerously close to Dhokla to prevent him from TPing, and then was able to avoid getting solo killed. So that was a dicey situation for Dignitas to try and contest. They don't win it, but at least it wasn't a total disaster.
Well, and that's pretty good on Licorice, right? Obviously, we didn't see how that scrap in the bot lane started, but if Rumble does end up joining this fight and just laying an equalizer across that Maokai ult, Dig ends up looking a lot worse coming out of that. As it is, NRG will get that 4 grub spike, having got 5 grubs. As we take a look at, I want to watch like what's going on up here too, right? Yeah, so Licorice was trying to just stop Dhokla from joining. Yeah,
and Dhokla had a nice control word in the bush to force Licorice from stepping up. So nice little game of cat and mouse there. Gets the flash for his ultimate, which will be up quickly. And an important flash burn by Jensen mid lane there. It puts Dignitas in a really difficult position, because let's look at the way these lanes are actually playing out. Jensen losing to Lucian, Skarner losing to Rumble, and their bot lane pushed in as well. So where does that, like, Ivern is just going to fall further and further behind. And it's on NRG to actually make the proactive plays here, because this means they'll have first setup on any Rift Herald or any Drake, and they also have a really inside track to getting first turret of the game.
Yeah, and you talk about how this composition works, right? Like, it's Maokai, it's 280 carries, it's Rumble. We've seen this a lot, and it is really nice and easy to execute.
Ooh, nice interception there on the arrow from Huhi, but the problem is he might just have to pay for it with his own life. The redemption called in for the extra little bit of damage. Zven is grabbing the first kill as Contractz wants to get one back. Equalizer finally comes down over the top as Palafox drops the calling, but Isles is ready to re-engage here with the Zenith Blade. Spica falls, FBI grabbed the kill on that one. NRG, they got another one, and now Isles could be the next in line. First Electro Harpoon ain't gonna find the mark. Jensen provides covering fire. Isles makes his retreat.
I think Dig should be very happy that that was just a 1-for-1 because there's a couple crucial things that happened here. So originally, when you cleanse this Leona R, Huhi's going to regret stepping in front of this Ashe arrow because there's actually a 70% CC reduction that you get post-cleanse that would have allowed FBI to actually almost immune that Ashe arrow, but instead, Huhi gets stunned the entire time, and they're able to kill him. However, on the tail end of this fight, when the Rumble actually does teleport in, watch the harpoons that he misses both of that either one could have secured the kill onto Isles.
Yeah, and you had Palafox and Jensen both coming up. Palafox looks like he's going to be in trouble. Flashes out, is also able to get out with both Isles and Jensen kind of on him. So split fight does work out surprisingly well for Dignitas, I would say.
It really does, and it means we have Drake now up, only the second Drake of the game, but everyone here except for Licorice. So NRG is going to want to start this to try and get the Licorice TP out. He does have the Skarner ultimate if there's a contest to be had, and instead looks like Dignitas is just going to give it up.
All right. Not going to fight for that one. Means that NRG are going to be the overall winners of the early on neutral objective battle, with the Drakes going even, but a 5-to-1 grub split in their favor, as Isles not really worried about any sort of real threat on his life from Huhi and FBI, considering how tanky the Leona is. Palafox is going to continue applying the pressure here in the 1v1 against Jensen, but Dhokla's ready to turn this into not a 1v1 if he gets the opportunity. Is recalling an award, though.
And this is actually giving a lot of free time for Licorice. I mean, he's been up top lane for quite some time now. They might end up getting... He's teleporting in behind for a gank.
Oh, nice solar flare. Immediate engage coming out from Isles. The equalizer trying to cover his own escape, but Dhokla's still very, very low. Licorice trying to put the enemy jungler in a bad spot, but it's a 1-for-1 trade. The Skarner and the Maokai both going to be traded back as NRG and Dignitas break even here in this big scrap.
And even though Licorice was able to TP into that fight, he immediately just took damage, right? And he was able to get in, get the apprehend, as we see, going on Zven.
Yeah, honestly, really important to have dodged that Winter's Bite.
Yeah.
I think that very easily could have been a kill otherwise, considering both summoner spells were down.
This is not a good game for Zven at the moment. Still down both summoners, losing mid-prio at every step. FBI not getting any weaker. Call just cashed in as well for an extra bit of bonus gold. But we're going to watch this fight one more time where Dig was really hoping this was going to be their big play. They're one, teleporting in to defend the turret, but more importantly, really trying to clean up kills here. Great Leona ult to start as the Skarner approaches.
Yeah, we get the Leona ult down, but then we also get the Maokai Rumble response. And Licorice, even though he is able to suppress Contractz, right? He's taking damage that entire time. So they NRG end up trading that back. Palafox is going to get this bot lane turret now.
And Dignitas needs more time. I think the thing with Licorice is he's had to lane against this Rumble, so he's just stacked magic resist, but then he teleports in and gets culled by Lucian Ezreal.
Yeah.
And he's got no armor. That, even though it got buff flowers by 0.2 per level, he still melts.
By God, I just don't know. I don't understand, Jatt. How does it happen?
He had 55 more health than last patch going into that fight.
Look at Flower's face. He was really counting on that health.
Yeah, I honestly can't believe that's almost enough to survive half of a Blade of the Ruined King proc, but it just still wasn't.
It wasn't enough.
As Palafox, this might not be enough either. Licorice not going to hit his ulti. Palafox, honestly, playing this beautifully. He's still alive for now. He sidesteps another zap. There's no way he lives, right? Finally, the kill comes through for Dignitas. Palafox fought that one tooth and nail, ultimately still falls, and Dig takes the kill plus the turret.
But a big investment there actually takes a little bit of extra time, so the Rift Herald pops mid lane. They've already killed the top turret. They want to break mid here as well.
Yeah, NRG should be able to break mid, and as you said, Jatt, Dhokla is still pushing on tier 2. He's going to rotate down now. We'll see if they end up doing anything else after getting this mid tier 2. But that also just opens up the map so much more now for NRG. They're up 3-1 in turrets. The Drake stacking is in neither team's favor since they each have one, but just having this open map, especially for these two AD carries, is massive.
I really do think NRG is ahead in this game, but I will say, when we were seeing Skarner a lot,
Yeah.
He seemed to just win games because of his ability to take up space in team fights.
Yes.
So I think if he gets a little bit of armor and Jensen and Zven can complete a few more items, that's the hope that Dignitas is holding on to. It's just going to be really difficult because of the amount of control that NRG has on the map.
And additionally, I mean, Dig do have a lot of pick potential, right? With their composition, we've seen when they have been able to split up fights potentially and isolate someone, that is where, you know, the Zeri can come in and be really strong. The Skarner can come in and be really strong. So that's kind of their window to success now for me, is either making picks so then it's a 4v5, or splitting up a team fight enough that you can pick off people individually and not run into the NRG kind of wombo combo.
And one thing I'm going to be looking for from Licorice in particular, if we're talking about this Skarner and how to succeed in the fights, remember that Skarner's E reduces its cooldown by almost 2/3 if you slam someone into a wall with it. So I feel like if Dignitas is going to take a longer fight, if it's going to be something more than just a pick, Licorice is going to need to get these angles, time those E's right, and make sure that he's getting those wallbang resets. Otherwise, his ability to create that space like we're talking about back when Skarner did dominate the meta is going to be greatly hampered.
Yeah, but I'm also just looking 10 seconds until this next Drake, and there is not very many good approaches for them into this. But what we do have to look at is these two wards, because maybe they could try a flank if they want to contest this. Knowing, though, that NRG only has one Drake, this is definitely the one you give up.
All right.
Yeah.
It looks like...
And they're just gonna give it up.
Yep, that's the name of the game. All right, one Ocean Drake, no big deal. Give that one away. NRG up one Drake, up 1,500 gold, 20 minutes into the game. Honestly, considering some of the games that we've seen so far here in Summer Split, this one's really, really close.
Yeah.
I think so, and honestly, I was trying to find differences with these two teams in the stats flowers before this game, so I'd have interesting things to talk about during the cast.
Okay, what do you got?
They're the same.
Oh.
Like,
They're
they're
the same
so
team?
close. So we have all these stats like close percentage, major lead percentage, major deficit percentage, and every time I was ranking like first to last in the LCS, NRG and Dig would be right next to each other. Like, those percentages were just the same. The only differences that I found between these two teams was that Dhokla doesn't get the same level of jungle attention that Licorice did, and that Contractz likes to camp bottom lane. But then even in this game, they moved top lane a bit and started ganking more for Dhokla, so it was probably kind of the same. So I am not surprised that this game is 4 kills to 4 with only a 1,000 gold difference.
All right, there's a 1,000 gold difference, but there, in terms of role, is a 1,600 advantage in the bottom lane marksman position. FBI over Zven, the Ezreal versus the Ashe. That is the largest gold advantage for a single player compared to his counterpart. So keep your eyes on FBI and what he might be able to accomplish in this upcoming fight. Solar Flare with the arrow, both going to be used here at the same time as the Skarner ulti grabs two. Nicely done there from Licorice, Huhi having to try to get away. He still survives, and now Licorice is getting cooked. He's got to try to stay alive somehow. Beautiful E-stall impact right back into the wall. That's what I'm talking about. You get that stun, you have some fun. Dignitas, 1-0.
And that's the Skarner presence in those team fights. He's the front line. The buffs might have actually saved him there. We'll have to check the tapes for the math with his health and the extra armor. But that was so clutch by Dig, withstanding the Rumble ultimate with the redemption from the Ivern and then turning it around on Dhokla at the end. Very well played by Licorice.
Yeah, and they recognize with NRG all concentrated here that they can try to get a pick. Just watch Licorice coming in. This is so
Double
great.
suppress.
Yeah, even with the Maokai ult coming off of the back and Dhokla showing up in time to separate them and do damage, you think Licorice might go down, immediately gets the suppress, shoves Dhokla into a wall. Good stuff.
And one of the big things there, he has Fimble Winter completed. If you notice the shields popping up, spamming the way that they did, that's not just Skarner's W, that's not just Seismic Bastion, that's the Fimble Winter next to it. This is an incredibly synergistic item on the champion. Back when he was really strong, back when he was meta, you saw people building this all the time in top lane for a damn good reason. It lets him spam out those shields constantly, and it gives him so much survivability in fight.
And you were really good at answering this question before. Like, what is his shield scale off of?
Health.
What is the Thimblewinter shield scale off of?
Health.
What is I think some of his damage.
Help.
Okay, everything scales off of health.
I feel like if Dig win, we need to bring back he's the best champ in the game.
I'm pretty sure producers still have that just
They
locked away.
definitely do.
in
I
some sort of-
expect them to spam it now, actually, that I just said that.
Some sort of panic button somewhere has that allocated to it. But so far, Licorice has been a part of 4 out of 5 of the team's kills. That is the second highest. Thank
There
you,
we go.
producers. Yes. Second highest KP on the team. It is Spica, the only player on Dignitas that has been a part of everything. 2-1 and 3 on the Ivern. Honestly, having a really good game so far.
Great takeaway in this match because we know Contractz would have picked it early on in the draft phase if Spica didn't take it right away. And I think what the Ivern is also enabling is this Jensen Zeri. It's the first time we've ever seen him play Zeri. He decided to do it instead of a control mage matchup against the Lucian. And he's in a position now where he's the one that should carry this game. He's got a 30 CS advantage on the Lucian. He's got 1.2 thousand gold against his mid lane counterpart, and he's in a position where he's got to step up and carry.
And you know, back with what I was talking about in draft, Jensen is somebody who before has come under fire for not being able to adapt when the meta has big shifts, big swings, big changes, whatever you want to call them. So to see him being 2-0-1 on this champion, which would not fit into his stereotypical pool, is a very good sign for Dignitas.
Yeah. As we see both Baron and Drake setup going on. NRG did push out, so they have pretty good vision. Dig has that ward back in the pit. And now it looks like they should have pretty good control over Drake if they want to go for it.
Yeah.
As Dig are now posturing around Baron.
The thing is, Dig can also start threatening Baron, and this is the first time they've actually had a little bit of control on the map because they're at least pushing out the top side and clearing vision in the Baron River. It will allow Palafox to solo this Drake if NRG just kind of bluffs for a little bit here. The danger with bluffing, though, is at any moment an arrow could fly out from Ashe and try and start a team fight.
All right, Palafox got that Drake to about almost half HP. The rest of the team just trying to place.
They saw him with Ashe arrow, so they should engage in the mid.
Okay, hold on. Palafox now throwing the calling out towards Licorice, who's coming down to stop him from taking the Drake or at least try to contest it. Dhokla's gonna make his way down, so Licorice cannot get any closer. Drake secured for energy there on the first point.
Digger starting up the Baron.
Yeah, Dignitas onto Baron. A TP's coming in. It's a full 5-man play from the Dignitas squad. Energy has to try to answer this. They cannot be caught just letting this slip away. Daisy down to 500 HP. Solar Flare ain't gonna find any hard CC. Immediately though, Licorice with a beautiful pick as Jensen gets a killing spree and Palafox falls. Contractz in the middle of everybody.
No.
And Jensen is caught out and shut down. Licorice here on the front line. But again, he's got to endure the wrath of FBI. Immediate counter engage coming out from Miles here with a Zenith blade. Another 1-for-1 trade going down with a 3v3 still ready to go. The volley fires off. It ain't gonna be enough. Another kill comes through as Licorice is ready to stand and fight, but it ain't gonna matter. It ain't gonna work. Dhokla with a triple kill. Energy with a 4-for-2.
What a fight! Back and forth the entire time. The idea was right for Dignitas. Use the dragon to give yourself the start on Baron and look to peel. And Licorice sees the teleport coming in to start the fight.
Yeah, watch Licorice. He gets right onto Palafox. This is exactly what you want the Skarner to do. Palafox immediately gets deleted. Jensen goes in and then just gets bodied.
Really poor re-engage there by Jensen, because if he's in the back line to do damage here, Dignitas runs this game. And even now it looks like they can finish, but when Zven flashes forward and doesn't get that kill onto FBI, it allows Dhokla to just burn them up. And that is the face of a stressed coach.
Yeah, somebody check ThinkCard's blood pressure, please. I don't know if this man's all right. Oh, hold on.
FBI.
I don't know if FBI's all right either. Prophet of Clan's getting away from the Enchanted Crystal Arrow as now Isles is here on the front line and nobody else is around. Nobody's coming to save him. Nobody's coming to bail him out. First kill goes over to Energy. Daisy not surviving much longer. Licorice still maybe looking for an angle here. Energy's low on health. Jensen still looking at free fire. Picks up the first one. Huhi's gonna drop. Lots of bodies hitting the floor. Dignitas just got 4. Contractz, the last one standing, and the boy is gone. Dignitas 5-for-1.
If at first you fly in and die on Zeri, fly in and try again, because you're gonna ace Energy. It looks like they could actually take this. kill the turrets and actually end the game.
Oh my god, and it's incredible the amount that they are going to get off of this victory here in the mid lane. The 5-for-1, they don't have Baron, they don't need it. It's 5 seconds on Huhi, but it'll be another 15 before anybody else is back alive. Licorice tanks the turret, he protects the minions. There's not going to be any backdoor protection coming up now. There's no way that Braum can stand and do it all on his own. Huhi's just going to give over another kill for free. Dignitas take out NRG in game number 1.
And once again, it comes down to these crucial mid to late game team fights that NRG do not win. Last time against C9 in game 1, it was that Baron. This time in the mid lane, I feel like I owe Licorice and Skarner an apology.
Yeah!
I was not familiar with their game.
And Jensen also kind of shook his head at the end walking off stage there because he felt like he threw the game a minute after he won the game.
You throw it and then you catch it.
Just
Exactly.
Zeri things, you know?
Just Zeri things, I guess. First Zeri game, first Zeri win for Jensen, and as you saw at the end there, one win away from drastically increasing their playoff chances.
Just like we talked about at the start of the game back in the draft, NRG already has those 2 series wins, so they're feeling all right. After that loss to Shopify last week, Dignitas, they're motivated. They got to be hungry to get this, because if you drop this one, all of a sudden, everything is very dire heading into the final week.
And I think it's a tough loss for NRG, honestly, because the way they had control of this game, they felt like they were in a clear winning position for 20 minutes before they lost.
All right, a reminder.